Hey everybody, it's Kim from Read It Again. Today I'm here with Amanda Plumb. Hey Amanda.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, so Amanda wrote this great book called Unique Eats and Eateries of Atlanta. Hi. Okay, so before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Amanda Plumb, and I've been in Atlanta for about 11 years. Growing up, food was always really important in my family. My grandmother is Italian and cooked great meals. My mom is an amazing cook, and so I was really spoiled. But we also went out to eat a decent bit. We'd go out to eat after church, and I was a big fan of going to Taco Bell. I'm not going to lie. Everyone else was a little bit more adventurous than I was. Like, I also went through like a hamburger only phase in my life and a vegetarian phase. But we went out to eat a lot, and that was a lot about how we got to know a place. And where I grew up in Rock Hill, South Carolina, there wasn't a ton of different food. There was like a Chinese place or a Thai place. But it's when I moved to Atlanta that I realized there was so much amazing food. And I formed a group of friends called the Buford Highway Supper Club, and we would try a different restaurant on Buford Highway each month. And it was great. It was like the one time a month we'd all get together and eat, and we got to try a lot of new food and learn about different cultures. And that led to me forming an underground restaurant called Ciao Club Atlanta. And at Ciao Club, we have different chefs each month who are from, they're typically home cooks or caterers here in Atlanta, but they have different international roots. And we have dinner where we have about 50 people a night coming together to eat and learning about this food. And so when I was asked to write this book, I was like, yes, I see it as like a love letter to Atlanta's culinary scene. And I think it's just one of the best ways to get to know a city is through the local food establishments.
Okay, so how much fun was it to research this book?
I mean, first of all, I feel like I've been researching this book for 11 years because all the years of eating out and trying new places is off. But I did also get to try a lot of new places and just ask people what they thought of when they thought of unique eats for Atlanta. So
how did you come up with the list?
So I started just off the top of my head, making a list of places that I loved and I thought were interesting. But I also started asking on Facebook and social media what other people suggested. And I also asked each chef that I interviewed. It was always my last question, like, who else should be in this book? And that way I got to just think outside of the restaurants that I already know and love and learn about new places.
Let's see, if you guys have a question for Amanda, please ask it. Okay, so when you wrote this book,
I'd love to know who's on the call. So if people
we got somebody related to you.
Yeah, that's my sister.
Hi, Emily.
My hamburger days.
Okay, so the way this book is done is you have your list of your restaurants, and then you do like a background story of them. So how did you find those stories? Maybe what was your favorite?
Sure. So I think when people look at it, they're going to assume it's like reviews of the restaurants, and it's really not. It's really the stories behind the people that are behind these restaurants. And so for all of them, I did interviews. So I called up people and asked to meet them. When I could, I would meet them in person at the restaurant. Sometimes we did them over Zoom during the pandemic. And I really just start with like, where does cooking come from in your family? Sometimes it went back to learning from their grandparents. Some of them, I had folks that like grew up in restaurants, but they did not want to go into the restaurant industry, but something else turned them on. Maybe it was Food Network or seeing, there's a guy, Parnas, who opened a Thai place, and his family owned restaurants. He had no interest in going to cooking, but he's also really annoyed by the fact that there just wasn't good, authentic Thai food. He thought the kind of Thai food that you saw in the US was just Americanized Thai food, and he really wanted to really explore real Thai food. So he actually went into culinary school and has all these French techniques and things, and he brings it to Thai food. So it's really just finding out the stories and finding out weird facts about places. I'd always ask, what would surprise me, or what is something that, a first-time customer wouldn't know to ask for or expect. So I got to learn about secret menus and things like that.
At the bottom of most of them is a little black box with like, don't order from the menu, ask for this. There are vegetarian options.
Exactly.
Yeah. 2 parking spaces are reserved for clergy because regulars, Archbishop of Atlanta and the Monsignor complained about having to park so far away. Both have since passed through the pearly gates, but the privileged parking space remained for any member of the clergy to use. That kind of thing.
So if you're a clergy, you want to go to Manuel's Tavern, and there's special parking for for you. Yeah, there's places with secret menu items or just items that only show up one day a week. And so you want to know where to go and where you're going to get something special. Because I want everyone to have the best experience. But you asked about some of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first story in the book is the first person that I interviewed, and his name is Matt Hinton, and he was an adjunct professor over at Morehouse College.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. So when you're an adjunct, you only get paid if your class has enough students enrolled to actually meet. And so one of the semesters in 2008, his class didn't get enough people, and so it was canceled. And he's like, I got to figure out how to make up the money. Well, back in the 90s, he had been a regular at Tortillas. Do you remember Tortillas on Ponce? Did you ever go there?
No, I'm from Florida, but I came up here for college. So I moved here in 98.
Okay. So this was this like grungy kind of place where like everybody that worked there played in a band and had tattoos and looked like they hadn't showered in a while. And they made these amazing mission style burritos that were huge and really cheap. I think this is during my vegetarian phase, and I would always get the bean and cheese burritos, and they were like $2.50, and they would add potatoes and rice for free, which I thought was like such a good deal, which is not a good deal because potatoes and rice cost nothing. But when they closed down, there's this huge outroar, and a ton of people came the last day. There's like one guy bought 52 burritos so he could freeze them and have one a day for the rest, or one a week for the rest of the year. And they actually gave away the recipes to all their burritos. And so Matt had these recipes like in a closet somewhere, and he dug them out and he emailed a bunch of friends and said, hey, you remember Tortillas? Like, would you pay me to make their burritos? And he got 50 orders on his first week, and he just made burritos at his house. The first night he burned all the beans like an hour before he's supposed to start delivering. So we didn't deliver the last burrito until like 10 p.m., which is really late when people are hungry. But he did it, and it was miserable, and he never wanted to do it again. But he did it again every week for that semester. And I remember this because I was a Tortillas fan. So when I heard about this, I did this thing where you'd like send him an email by Wednesday, and he would bring it by your house on Monday. And, he was just driving around with his van delivering burritos. And he couldn't wait till he could get back to teaching. But the next semester he had the same problem, and he actually decided just to go all in with the burritos. And he opened a location at Sweet Auburn Curb Market because they had different kiosks. And there's a little street called Bell Street that goes into the employee parking lot behind the market. And so he named it Bell Street Burritos, which I think is fun because most people don't even know where Bell Street is and how it got its name. And one of the other facts I love there is you can get homemade tamales on Fridays. Only on Fridays. His cook Lydia makes them. So that's one of my favorite stories.
So we have a question from the audience who I suspect is related to you. Which 4 places featured in Unique Eats did you take your parents to last weekend?
I love this. I think the only people watching are my family.
That's great. I love it. It's support.
Yes, my parents were in town, and we went to Spring, which is in Marietta. Have you been there?
No. Mm-mm. Tell me about it.
It's an amazing, like, special occasion place. There's a very small menu. And
I read about it. I remember that one.
Yeah, because Brian, he makes everything. Like, you start off with huge sourdoughs, bread that's amazing. He makes that. He makes little chocolates for dessert and everything in between, which is pretty unusual to have a chef that will do everything from soup to nuts. Like, he really does. So I took my parents there. We went to Cafe Intermezzo for dessert because it just feels like you're in Europe. Like, it just feels like you're someplace else. Also, we got to see them filming Ozark right out front. So that was cool.
That cafe, we went there a ton in college. And I just remember like my friends, like smoking cloves, sitting outside.
I remember that. Yeah. When I was younger, it was like kind of a cool place you could go.
Yeah.
You get coffee, drinks, and desserts.
90s.
It would be up really late, right? Mm-hmm. There's also drinks and a food menu, but like no one goes there for dinner. It's all about dessert. In fact, it's my go-to place when my friends' daughters get their first period. I like to take them to Cafe Intermezzo. It's just a little great. Yeah. So we went there. We went to Crawfish Shack, which is up on Buford Highway. It's Vietnamese meats, Cajun. You get your po' boys, things like that. And the other place we got takeout from Talat Market, which I mentioned earlier. Talat is market in Thai, so it actually means market.
Mhm.
And they started out as a pop-up, and they opened up during the pandemic,
Oh.
which they had to do just takeout, but it is just fabulous. Everything there is incredible. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, and this is great because Kim has
we were
celiac.
just talking about this. Yeah.
He's celiac like my dad. So at Spring, yeah, they made gluten-free bread for my dad. And also at Talat, they changed one of the dishes and took out one of the sauces and put in a gluten-free version. So all these places, if you just ask and give them some notice, they're happy to accommodate.
Mr. Plum, your daughter was telling me before we started that you were gluten-free and I'm gluten-free. So we were bonding over your gluten-freeness.
And I have to say that Alex, who chimed in, he had an important role in my culinary career because he was a member of the Buford Highway Supper Club. And when he moved to New York City, I let him pick where we were going to go eat, and he wanted Ethiopian food. And there's a ton of food on Buford Highway, right?
Yeah,
and
there is.
It's from Latin America or Asia, and there's not a ton of Ethiopian. So I asked my good friend Johanna, who's an Ethiopian chef, where we should go. And she was like, come to my house. So we actually had her come to my house and cook for us. And that's what kicked off Ciao Club. That was the thing that inspired us to start doing these monthly dinners. So I credit Alex with that.
Well, I read in your book that your parents used to have a supper club that they went to, right?
Yeah. So when we lived on Hilton Head Island, they had a group of friends and they would pick a different type of cuisine each time. And what was different is this was the 80s, so there was no internet. So I believe that they would actually go to the library and research like Indonesia and Indonesian food and like find a cookbook. They would Xerox copies and make a binder for each of the couples and assign each of the couples like a different dish to make. And these were definitely adult parties. Like I was not allowed to attend, but I definitely got the sense of like, one, that it was cool to try food from different places, that it was a way to like travel the world without leaving your home. I call it cuisine. I didn't know that. So yeah, that was definitely an inspiration. And so it's pretty fitting that I have my own supper clubs now.
Okay, so tell us about another restaurant in the book.
Well, on Memorial Avenue, there's a place called Barrio, and it kind of looks a little run down. You're not really sure what it is from the outside, but I love their stories. So that was Jesus and Martha, and they're from Mexico. They actually
I remember that one. Yeah,
they came to us on Jose's on his motorcycle, and she was pregnant at the time. Yep. And then they settled in Atlanta in this little area called Taco Town because there were a lot of Mexican immigrants living there. And she actually just started cooking for the other men that lived in the building because a lot of single men who came to the U.S. to work. So she would cook and just serve plates out of her kitchen. And she did this for years. And they actually moved a house and had people coming in to eat in the dining room and living room. And one of their customers, in fact, was like the only customer that they had that was like a white U.S. born guy, was like, I love you guys, but you really need to find a restaurant because like you could get in trouble if, the authorities ever found out about this. So he encouraged them to buy a restaurant. They found this old grocery store in Memorial. It took them 3 years to fix it up. On the first day, they had about 15 customers. But now if you go, it's packed. It's just packed all the time because it's really affordable. The food's good and you get huge portions. And everything's homemade. Like they actually make the tortillas for each dish. When you order it, they cook your tortillas. And there's only like 10 chili rellenos that they make a day. Some specials like the red pozole you can only get on Friday and Saturdays. And another tip there is you should go on your birthday and let them know, and it'll give you a shot of their best tequila and risque kind of shot glass.
Let's see here. Your Aunt Vicky is watching.
Wow. This is like a family reunion. This is great.
Love it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's see. What was your most surprised restaurant? Like you were like, wow, I did not expect that.
So one place I'd heard of but never had been to is the 57th Fighter Group. Have you been there?
No.
So it is, first of all, it's near the DeKalb Peachtree Airport.
Okay.
And you go up this like driveway and you drive for a while and it's like kudzu everywhere.
Yes, I have been there.
You start seeing like World War II Jeeps on the side of the road and you go past like a military checkpoint and then you pull up at this building that is a French farmhouse that has been bombed. Like it is falling apart, but it's, stucco, and you go inside and there are sandbags everywhere. And it is a World War II themed restaurant. And the guy who started it was doing themed restaurants around the country. When you go in, there is World War II paraphernalia everywhere, and it's authentic. And one of the things that's really neat is one whole side of the restaurant is windows. So you're actually right next to the runway, and you can see these planes taking off and landing while you eat. You can ask for headsets and listen to the control tower. It's super fun. It's someplace that I think kids would love. I wish my grandpa was around to show him. Like, he would have loved it. I think my Aunt Vicky, when she comes to visit, I want to take her there.
Plus, that Aunt Vicky?
That's going.
Yeah, you need to come visit.
But it's great. I mean, they have a dance floor. They have really cheap drinks that people go there for the nightlife. There's also a patio area that's right outside, so you can sit, again, by the runway, which is a place I want to take my niece and nephew to as well when they come visit. So you're just getting to see planes, and the food's great. They have like a beer cheese soup that's amazing. They cut their own steaks there, and then they use the scraps from the steaks to make hamburgers. So the food is great. The drinks are cheap. And it's just a really fun place to sit. And I would never have thought of going there.
I want to say I went there. It was after college, before I got married. And we went there, my husband and I, with a couple other couples. And it was like a date night. And the place was, I had just been like, whoa, where did this come from?
It feels like you're in Disney World. Like, it just feels like you're in a theme park, but it's like right off of Beaufort Highway.
Okay, tell me more. What else?
Well, okay. So do you want to know another story or?
Yeah.
Okay. So some of the places I do are some of the like historic places in Atlanta. Have you ever been to Pascal's?
No, but I know of it, and I loved reading about it in your book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was opened in 1947, and it was started by Robert Pascal, who was a soda jerk at Jacob's Drugstore, which is right by all the HBCUs. And the students would come in and order food because the food on campus wasn't very good. But honestly, he didn't think the food at the drugstore was very good either. And he really wanted to do his own food. Like, he'd like to make fried chicken and stuff like that. But he didn't have the money to open a restaurant. But luckily, his wife, Florine, had actually saved up a lot of money. So she helped him open up a restaurant. And on the very first day that they were open, there was a huge line out the front, and which was great because people had heard about the fried chicken, they wanted to try it, but unfortunately the oven and stove just broke, so they had no way to cook the food. So he actually calls up his wife Florine, who's at home, and she just starts cooking, and she makes all the food for the restaurant at the house, and then she has to order a taxi to take it to the restaurant. And they had to do this for several weeks before they got enough money to buy more equipment. And it ended up being a place where like Martin Luther King had a suite. It was just a place where a lot of people in the movement went to meet. And the really cool thing is they have this guy, Mr. Slack, who has been there since he was in high school, like with the original owners, and he is now their historian. So I got to talk to him, and he just like told me so many stories from working there, which was really fun.
That is really cool. So we had a comment here about a soda jerk.
Hey, Connie. A friend of mine from New York.
Okay, so what else? So like, wait, how about this? If you were going to go out to dinner right now to anywhere in here, where would you pick?
Oh my gosh.
What are you craving?
That is a hard question. I love, all right, so I would say, God, they're all right. No, they're close. Okay, I've got 45 minutes to get to Nick's to Go. Have you ever been to Nick's to Go?
Yeah.
They are right by kind of Oakland Cemetery, downtown, and it is a small to-go place. Like, there's no place to sit. You just order your food and leave. And Nick was kind of known as like the soup Nazi of Euros. Like, wouldn't let you order ketchup or anything. It's kind of attitude. This is not Burger King. You can't get it your way. But they close at 7 p.m. every night, and on Sundays they're always closed. And I noticed that with a lot of the family-run places. Barrio is similar. Like, you can't go on Sunday; they're not going to be open late because they really want to make it a place where it's like survivable for their family.
Yeah, and well, they need to have a life too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another place that I thought was really interesting is Ticonderoga Club. When they opened, it was 4 people who had all been working in the industry, and they really didn't see a good future for themselves. Either they could go work for a big restaurant chain and like have to work their way up to, be in charge of a restaurant, or they could start their own restaurant, but they'd be there, every day, never getting a break. And they really wanted to create something different. So they really tried to design a restaurant where it was sustainable for themselves and their employees to work. And they really thought it was like a sandbox where they got to try a lot of different things. And that's a place I've not been back since the pandemic, but I'm excited to get there for sure.
I saw that you had your book launch at
Refuge Coffee.
Yes.
Yeah, have you been out there before?
No, tell me about it.
So, all right. So Refuge Coffee kind of goes back to an idea. So Kitty Murray and her husband were talking one night, and they're very religious people. And her husband pointed out there's a point in the Bible where they talk about being around like widows and aliens and orphans. And he just kind of was like, we don't have a very diverse set of friends. Like, we're not really living God's word. We don't have a diverse group of friends. And Kitty got really defensive at first, being like, but we donate money, we go on mission trips, like we're good people. But the more they talked about it, they realized like they were living in a white neighborhood with mainly pretty well-off folks. And they made a decision to move to a more diverse area. So that was an intentional decision. And they picked Clarkston, Georgia. And Clarkston is the most diverse square mile in the country because it's a refugee resettlement area. Mm-hmm. So they moved there and they just started to get to know their neighbors and get to know the area. And Kitty was a writer, and there was no coffee shop in the area. So she had no place to, go and do her writing. And that also meant there weren't really places for people just to casually meet. And so she
place.
Like, wouldn't it be cool if there was like a coffee shop here? And she also learned that a lot of the refugees that lived in Clarkston would travel like 1 or 2 hours to go work at jobs in North Georgia, like in poultry factories, which are not jobs that pay well. They're not very safe. And so she realized, there just also wasn't like good employment opportunities. So she had this idea, like, what if there's a coffee shop that hired and trained refugees? And so she told everybody this idea because she wanted someone to open this coffee shop. And everyone's like, that's a great idea. But like no one took her up on it and just like made it. And finally her husband Bill was like, Kitty, I think you need to do this. And so she started it as a nonprofit, and it's been going for several years. They have they're at an old like gas station, and you actually get your coffee from a coffee truck, but then there's seating outside and in the gas station. It's super cute now. They also have trucks that they rent out for events. They have a second location at Sweet Auburn. But one of the things I love about it is you can just sit there and honestly, you will meet people. I don't think I've ever been where I didn't just strike up a conversation with someone. And all their employees just work for 1 year at a time, and they get English language classes, but also job skills. And then they get this job that they have on their resume and help with job placement. And it's a really neat community space.
That's awesome. So are you working on anything now?
Right now I'm mainly promoting the book, and then Ciao Club, the Underground Supper Club, is going to be starting again in August. We just had a tasting with our first chef back. So we're excited to be doing that.
How many people are in your group?
So for Ciao Club, it's really kind of, we call it a private club. But really anyone can join, go to our website and sign up. And we have I think we have several thousand people that get our emails, but then for any given dinner, there's about 50 tickets. And so we put the menu online, and you can see exactly what you'll be having for dinner, and people order the tickets. And when you come, you sit with strangers, so you get to meet people and try new food.
Now here, okay. No, that's not it. I was looking for the website.
It's atl.com.
ATL. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. There's a couple places in the book that are also nonprofits.
Okay.
There's Brewable Cafe, which is up in, I believe, Alpharetta at the community center. And it kind of came out of conversations they were having in the city about how to make Alpharetta a more livable place. And one of the things they realized is there weren't a lot of opportunities for people with developmental disabilities, especially when it came to employment.
Yeah, that's not far from us.
Yeah. So they gave this group of people some money and said, like, figure out what to do. And they created this coffee shop that is in a recreation center. And again, it hires people and trains them. Each person that works there, their baristas, is partnered with a manager, and they get one-on-one help. And so they learn how to make the drinks, how to use the cash register, how to interact with customers, again, setting them up for future employment opportunities. And it is like just the sweetest place to go. Like everybody is just really nice and friendly. It's not the type of place you want to go when you're in a hurry, but it's a place where you want to like actually interact with people. I love that you can bring your dog inside. So that's when I talk about Dr. Bradley's Underwater Tea Party. It's in Inman Park. It is a tea house. They have, high tea and, ice cream and things like that. But part of their mission is they support girls or young women in India who are aging out of, foster care or out of, housing for orphans and are becoming adults, but don't maybe have the money to like support themselves or continue with their education. And so they do monthly dinners called the Learning Tea that are Indian dinners. All the money goes to support these girls. They also have books for sale, and a certain percentage of their sales goes to support these young women in India. And then the other place I talk about is the Giving Kitchen, which is a nonprofit that supports restaurant workers who are out of work because they had a flood or fire at their house. Maybe they're sick or got in an accident or there's a death in the family. They can apply for assistance to help them. They also put them in touch with different resources in the community. Just realizing that a lot of people that work at restaurants, just need a little bit of help. Like they're living paycheck to paycheck and really need that kind of support. So yeah, there's a couple of nonprofits that are also in the food industry in the book.
Mr. Plum asked, is Shakespeare Place operating?
He's talking about the Shakespeare Tavern, which is downtown. I'm not sure if they've opened up or not. But one thing I didn't know about them is they actually started out in Manuel's Tavern.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was like a Shakespeare group. Like I think it started as a reading group and they wanted to do plays. And they really wanted to do them in a place like that felt like where Shakespeare would put on a play. And so they wanted to do it some sort of bar or pub, and they did them at Manuel's Tavern for a while until they ended up getting enough money to open up their own place.
Yeah, that's one of those places that like when you have a list of things you have to do in Atlanta, it's always on that list.
Yeah.
Like I remember doing it in college.
Yep. No, it's definitely one of those places you have to go to. And I feel like there's restaurants like that. Like you have to go to Mary Mac's and the Colonnade. Like there's the Varsity you have to try at least once.
I belong to an Agnes Scott alum book club that meets the Colonnade, although they haven't gone back yet. So I would eat at the Colonnade every month, and we had the best waitress, and she just was all business. It was awesome. And the mint ice cream, that was really good.
There are people that have been there for like 40 years.
Yeah.
And they have customers that go every single week and order the same thing all the time. Mm-hmm. Have you ever tried the tomato aspic?
No, I haven't. So when we do, it's in a function. So they pick the menu ahead of time, and you have like two options. And I normally get the vegetarian option, and then I take some of it home for my family because gluten-free is not really. It doesn't really work there, but it's such a great atmosphere and it's so much fun. Much fun.
The tomato aspic is gluten-free because it is Bloody Mary mix and gelatin.
Oh.
So it's like a congealed Bloody Mary with a side of mayonnaise.
I do normally get a glass of wine when I'm there, that's for sure.
Yeah, one of the other sides is like canned pears with cheese.
Yes.
And it is like old people classic food, and it's really fun, and like you have to try it at some point.
You have to try it, and it's in a fun neighborhood too. It's a lot of great stuff while you're driving there. So.
Yeah, because it's like by like all the sex stores and strip shops.
Yes. Yeah, like in hookah places and tattoo and massage parlors, and
I definitely feel like it's the red light district of Buckhead.
Yes. But it's still a nice, clean place to go. I wouldn't be scared. I mean, I go there once a month, and I don't feel scared driving home. So
no. And their customers have been affectionately called the gays and grays because it tends to be a lot of gay men and a lot of really old folks, and some are gay and old. And it is like everybody seems to know like when you walk in, you feel like you're going to like a country club where everybody already knows each other. Yeah. Because they do like these are people that have literally been going every week. They go religiously. And so it's a fun experience for sure.
So you talk about Mary Mac's Tea Room in your book. What other, if you come to Atlanta, you got to go here? Restaurants.
See, for me, if you're coming to Atlanta, you need to go to Buford Highway.
Yeah.
Like, for me, that is our Chinatown, our Little Korea, our Little Italy, like everything at once. Like, I just feel like you get to spend all day just in any one strip mall and just have your own progressive. So for me, because that's the type of food that when I was growing up in South Carolina, like I didn't know where to get dim sum or Bangladeshi food or, Guatemalan food. Even just going to like Plaza Fiesta for the day and walking around and just trying things. They have like what I call a secret food court that's like back in one of the market. I mean, there's just like food everywhere. And it's just really fun. And honestly, you can feel like you're in another country because, it has this market feel. So that's something I really recommend for folks. That's one of the ones I think is a must do for sure.
All right. Well, okay. So I have copies of Unique Eats and Eateries of Atlanta in stock, and I'm talking to Amanda about getting them signed and maybe doing an author event a little bit later in the year. You don't have to buy the book from us, but please support your local independent bookstore. You're in Atlanta. Who do you shop with? Do you Eagle Eye or?
So I'm a Karis girl. Karis, books, and the Bookish is in my neighborhood. So,
I haven't been to Bookish yet.
Bookstores down here.
Yeah, in college I shopped at like nothing but Karis. That's all. And then they're now like the Agnes Scott's official bookseller now, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I really think this book. It's like when I was writing it, I really thought about people that live here and have been to a lot of these restaurants. I think you're going to learn something new about a place that you've been 100 times, but you can also learn about new places. I think it's great for people who are just coming to the cities. If you know something here.
Yeah, this is like the perfect gift. Perfect gift for somebody.
Yeah, my parents have a copy, and so when they come to visit, they're the ones who tell me where they want to go eat now. So, I mean, I really tried to think about people that lived here and know these places, but also people that maybe have never been to a place before. So I really try to give you a sense of it, but also tell you something you're not going to know just by, going to the restaurant.
Yeah.
I tried to do research for each of these before I went to visit them. And a lot of them you can find a review and you can read about the food or maybe about the decor, but you really get to hear about the chef or the person who started it and why they started it and who taught them to cook and where their inspiration comes from. And that's what I really try to capture with these stories.
Well, you did it. It was a fun read. I enjoyed reading about it.
Do you find any places in the book that you want to try now?
Yeah, well, I was like, I didn't have a bookmark at the time, and I'm like, I want to write this down. So there was a couple. I don't even remember. I have to go back through. And then I've got friends coming to town, and I'm like, well, I just need to hand them the book and say, here, pick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my friend's daughter is coming to visit me next week, and she definitely wants to go to Mary Mac's.
Yeah.
And we've got reservations at Bacchanalia. We're going to do one fancy dinner.
Yeah, we're about to do, my best friend's family's coming, and they're going to do a college tour. And my son, we're going to jump on it too. And so they're going to be looking at Agnes Scott, Emory, Oglethorpe, Georgia Tech, all those. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just bring this book with me.
My parents have a family friend whose son is going to start school, I believe at Georgia Tech next year, so they got him a copy.
It is. And I mean, I'll tell anybody watching, one of our staff members bought a few of them because she wants to give them out as gifts. So, I mean, this really is a great gift for anybody moving to the area, anybody who's lived in the area, or any foodies. This is just a great gift. So, all right. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for doing this with us. I hope to see you in our store soon.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. And again, I just want to encourage everyone to support local bookstores like Read It Again, and also support local restaurants. Like,
yes,
need us right now. And it's been a really hard year and a half. So like, let's get out there and just give them our money, and it'll be a delicious way to support our community.
It does. You can eat your food. Oh, it's so good. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you. Bye.
Bye.